Hi everyone, my name is Samantha, and today I want to explore the origins of globalization by focusing on the first and the second wave of globalization. In the first wave, we see the Jamaican plantations for sugarcane, and in the second wave, we see the agriculture expansion in wheat in North Dakota. It's important to note that globalization means different things to different people. For some, like British merchants and investors, during the first wave of globalization, it represented opportunities for wealth and wealth accumulation. But for others, such as enslaved Africans, forcibly transported from their homes, it symbolized exploitation and oppression and the loss of freedom. We can see this as well how Indigenous people displaced by the American agriculture system saw globalization as a force of destruction and displacement. Meanwhile, European consumers looked at globalization as an access to new goods like sugar, tea, and wheat, enriching their daily lives, but often ignoring the human cost behind the products that they consume. Our textbook provides us a nuanced understanding of the term globalization because it is so complex, but it refers to it as a way in which people become more interconnected across greater distances while gaining a growing awareness of these connections. But essentially, globalization refers to the interconnectedness of economies, cultures, and nations through trade, innovation, and exchange. Jumping in, we can look at the Atlantic Triangle, which connected Europe, Africa, and the Americas in a triangular system. Jamaica became a really critical part in this because they were exporting sugar to Europe, they were financed by British troops, and they were powered by enslaved African labor. During the first wave of globalization, plantations like Worthy Park in Jamaica depended on the Atlantic Triangle. British force claimed Caribbean islands for British planters, and they planted sugarcane to be bought by the wealthy on a global scale. Despite the challenges like the lack of infrastructure and the labor shortages and almost no existing economy, the British forces pursued and they used African slaves through the Atlantic slave trade, and as well as loans from investors and financiers. This global system tied together planters and merchants and consumers, creating a dependency on sugar production. The story of Jamaica shows how globalization shaped not just economies but societies as well. While sugar trade brought wealth to some, it also came at a terrible cost, which was the enslaved Africans who bore the brunt of the system. Reflecting on this, I see how globalization, even in its early stages, had winners and losers that really laid the groundwork for global inequalities that we still see today. In the second wave of globalization during the late 19th century, North Dakota became a really key example of agriculture expansion driven by technology and capital. The Amenia and Sharon Land Company, founded in 1875, bought 28,000 acres of land from the Northern Pacific Railroad and developed large scale wheat farms that they called bonanza farms. Unlike Jamaica's reliance on slave labor, North Dakota's system depended on wage laborers and steam powered machinery. And the railroad system also played such an important role connecting farms to the global markets. The farmers would ship the wheat to Chicago, where new trading systems that developed at the time helped distribute the food worldwide. But however, just like the Jamaica sugar trade, the system hurt the lives of many indigenous peoples. I want to take a quick moment to look at the similarities between the first and second wave. In both Jamaica and in North Dakota, we see how the government really supported and funded a lot of the time the expansion of their agriculture efforts on a global scale. And we can see how the government plays such a key role in globalization. We know that both systems relied on global networks, and in both cases, economic globalization created winners and losers. The British financiers and the North Dakota investors both benefited greatly by these efforts, while enslaved Africans in Jamaica and displaced Native Americans bore the costs. And I can't help but think to my studies about Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote the Discourse on the Origin and the Basis of Inequality Among Men. And in this, he argues that as societies grow more interconnected, individuals increasingly compare themselves to others, fostering competition, independence, and a loss of natural freedom. When I apply this to globalization, I think that Rousseau might suggest that while it brings people closer and maybe fosters cooperation, it also risks deepening inequalities. And he would question whether such connections truly benefit humanity or serve to perpetuate exploitation and alienation from, a much simpler, more authentic life. So, in conclusion, we can see how both waves reveal how economic motivations like resource extraction, market expansion, and wealth accumulation shaped our interconnected world. One lingering question that I have, though, is how can we ensure that today's globalization builds a more equitable system rather than perpetuating past inequalities? But thank you for listening and for watching, and I look forward to hearing all of your thoughts.